Well, hello there. Welcome to Hanging with the Hags. Well, today we are sitting at Fort Gordon in Augusta, Georgia, and trying to run down a little bit of a water leak. And just to give you a little bit of background, it's been happening periodically, and it's not the normal water leak. Like, we've had water leaks over there back behind the manifold. We've had water leaks down here on the water pump itself. We've had water leaks on this outlet of the water pump. But this water leak tends to come right in here. It gets that board and these boards wet on the bottom, and then it just kind of pools right in this area. Of course, it's not inside the pan, right? The wet bay has a pan back there that catches water leaks on the wet bay. It's not in there. It's not coming from anywhere up here. There's never anything wet up there, and those boards that are in there are never wet. It's only on the bottom. It pools here and gets all of these lower boards wet. And so we winterized the RV about 6 weeks ago. We left it at Fort Gordon. We were going to spend 6 weeks condo hopping around South Carolina. And when we came back, again, we had water pooling in this area again. So Vickie came in and she took out all the panels and cleaned up all the water. And we think we've found where it's coming from. So I'm gonna kind of zoom in with the phone here. So backside of the manifold is all here. In this compartment we have, that's our hot water tank. And then down here, that's our heater, our gas forced air heater. And if you look to the right of that, I'll zoom in. See the yellow towel down there on the stick? When she was cleaning up the water, she got it all cleaned up and then noticed that there was a water trail coming from underneath the heater. Now, this has happened numerous times before. Sometimes it rains and there's no water. Sometimes it rains, there's a little water. Sometimes it rains, there's a lot of water. No rhyme or reason to it, but it always ends up pooling in the middle here and gets these three boards wet. And so I think I figured out what's going on. All right, so now I moved over to the utilities side, non-camp side of the RV. And here's my wet bay. And again, it's not coming in on the wet bay, none of the water and none of that. It's not getting in the tray, it's getting beyond the tray. So then I came over and I started looking at this side. Now, I do all my own work on my RV. I very rarely call anybody. And certainly all of my seals, I'm up on the roof constantly. I'm doing my own caulking. I'm looking at seals. I'm looking at screws, tightening everything up. And I got to notice that here's my hot water. Outside of my hot water, nice good bead of silicone around here. No issues. Everything looks good down the side of the RV. And then as I look down here on the heater, there was no silicone on the heater here. Nowhere on there was there any type of silicone. Okay, so I've already taken out all the screws. So you got 4 screws here, 1, 2, 3, 4. That holds the plate on, but you actually got to take these 6 screws out first. This is your inlet for the heater, and this is your exhaust for the heater. So you take those 6 screws out. You pop that off. Now you got your inlet valve, and then your cover just comes off. And then what it looks like is, if I go along the top edge here, it's kind of hard to see, but it looks like there's some die-core tape back there. I don't know if it's showing up on camera very well, but it looks like when this got inserted, there is some die-core tape that's around this flange. But I also see where this is cracked. It's cracked here, it's cracked over on this corner here. And if I look up on the top, it looks like I'm seeing some gaps where that die-core should be filling in. And so my thought is, because of the water leak is so irregular, that maybe when the winds are coming from this side, and again, we're at 382 RK, so I have my bed is right above this, which is kind of shading this. So it would have to be a really hard rain driving sideways at this wall to really get water in here to maybe come down on this flange and then leaking in. So if you look back through those connections, that's the towel that we stuck in from the other side where we felt like the water was coming in at. Anyways, I'm gonna try and stuff a little more. Probably gonna loosen up these, pull this out a little bit, make sure that that die-core is in there really good. I'm gonna screw it back in, and then I'm going to put everything back together, and then I'm gonna do some silicone around the outside of this whole flange, and hopefully that works. But I guess my question is, has anybody had an issue like this before? Because I certainly did not notice before that there was no silicone around the outside of this, and maybe it's not really needed because the die-core sealant is on the back side of that flange, but obviously something is going on, and I think it's on this side. Anyways, leave your comments below. Hopefully that works. Thanks for watching. Alrighty, so I went ahead and I took off this piece here. Remember, this was cracked in the corner down there and down along the edge, so I just spread a little bit of super glue on the cracks, hoping that by the time I get this reinstalled that it's not going to crack anymore. On the back side of this flange, there was not die-core. There was a little bit of a foam padding on the back of this. And so I haven't necessarily figured out that this is my aha moment and this is where the water's coming in. But I feel like we can do a better job of sealing this up for sure. So I think what my plan is I'm gonna let that super glue get hard on the flange there, and then when I go to put this back in, I'm gonna do a bead of die-core around this whole edge. I'll put the flange back on, and then on these vents here, I did notice that on the back of here, there was some die-core sealant on here. Most of it was gone, so I'm gonna redo the die-core around this piece, and then once that's all back together, then I'm just gonna silicone around the whole exterior, and I think that's where I'm gonna go from here. So in order to get this other piece off, it wasn't too bad. There's a bunch of screws around the flange, but how they had this sitting in here was they had it screwed on this side, 2 screws here. And so there's about a 3/4 of an inch gap over here. So once I got the flange unscrewed, it still wouldn't come out because it was being pinched in here. So I had to take these 2 screws out. And then those 2, which was holding it in. and then these two down here, which was holding it, I'm assuming, to the bottom plate. And then now I was able to kind of just jiggle this around just enough to slide that flange out. So that's what I'm gonna do, and hopefully this fixes it. Alrighty, well, we got the butyl tape on, and I started on this end corner here and have one strip all the way around and ending right back on this corner. If you're not familiar with butyl tape, this is a really sticky tape used for the exterior of RVs. A lot of times you'll see it up on the roof where you would like mount a bracket. You'd put some butyl tape down, put the bracket on, put the screws in, and then putty or use some type of silicone around those. And then I also got, so this is the exhaust and intake for the fan, for the heater, so that'll go on there. So I got some more tape on there, and we'll just we're gonna butt that butyl tape right up to this foam. I'm gonna leave that foam on there, and then just screw that back on the way it was. Alrighty, here we are. So I got the flange put back on, and like I said, I was gonna put some butyl tape down below it. And so I kind of lined up the butyl tape with kind of the edge of the paint. And once I got the flange on, it squished out a little bit along the edge here. And so I just kind of been using my finger, kind of just pushing it down a little bit. And if you look, that's got a really good seal all the way around there. And so then the next step is I have that outer cover to put on. And so this will go on next. And then the vents. And then we just gotta wait for some more rain to come and see if we fix this. Alrighty then, well, that's another completed project. So this is my heater is put back together. And so if you look closely here around the edge, you can see a little bit of gray. So that's the butyl tape peeking through. And then I siliconed. I pulled off as much of the butyl tape as I could pull off. And then I siliconed on top of it all the way around. And then there was butyl tape on the vent. So this is the inlet and this is the exhaust vent. So these 6 screws came out, butyl tape holding that on. So foam up here was good. We got butyl tape around that, butyl tape around the flange, and then everything is siliconed. So hopefully this works and we won't have any more interior water leaks. Only time will tell. Thanks for watching. Yabba dabba doo. We'll be at a campsite near you.